Hi, it is the eve of the Booker Prize announcement, and I, Congested Sam, am here to talk about who I think should win the award before the award is announced, and then maybe I'll film a reaction if, my prediction or whatever comes off. So who am I to judge who should win the Booker Prize? I'm not, because otherwise I would be judging it, obviously. The only real requirements that I know to be qualified for the Booker is that it has to be a book written within the past, I think, calendar year, and it has to be written, translated into English, and it has to have been published in the UK, Ireland area. That's all I can recall as the parameters for being nominated. Now we have 6 books that were shortlisted for this Booker Prize. They're from all over the world, and yeah, I picked up this project and I wanted to read the 6 shortlisted books and decide who I think should win, because I did read the 2019 Booker Prize winners, and I found that one of those books was very clearly the best book that should have been, the winner, which is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. And that is actually one of my favorite books now of this year. It's just so well crafted, great voice, great narrative, just an overall made me feel good book. It's great. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to read through these books and then say, oh, who I think should win. And because normally I don't read all of the shortlisted books. On occasion I'll pick up one of the shortlisted books just because it just so happens to be in my radar, but I've never actually gone out of my way to try to read all of the books. And I have almost done that. We're going to start with a book that I have not yet finished. This is the last book that I will be finishing, probably by the time that the Booker Prize is announced, but I want to get this up before that. So, that is Burt Sugar by Avni Doshi. And this book, I'm only like 50% through. But I'm at the point in the book where I think that there's a distinct winner for me from what I've read. This book takes place in India, and it is about a mother-daughter relationship. The mother is seemingly going through dementia, or she has early onset Alzheimer's, and the daughter is relaying her story and how she basically traumatized her as she grew up, and their whole life living in poverty, living in an ashram, leaving the ashram, and then where they are now. What I love about this book is the writing itself. It's just, I really am taken by the character of Antara, who is the daughter. She's actually the one that's relaying her mother's history, and you're kind of getting this it's almost like a unreliable narrator. I love the details and I'm loving her attitude. So this is definitely one of my favorite picks so far. I obviously do need to finish it in order to really formulate a full-on opinion, and in no way am I going to be like, this is my star rating in this video, but this is definitely one that I absolutely have enjoyed. So, well, I hope they all win. I don't think that's going to happen. Next, Shoggy Bay by Douglas Stewart. This book follows a mother, Agnes Bain, and her young son, Shoggy, in the 1980s in Ireland, shortly after Thatcherism has pretty much ransacked the entire country's economy. Agnes is trying to raise her family and on welfare, and she's also struggling with alcoholism. Shoggy, in the meantime, is trying to keep his family together as they're all starting to abandon his mother, and he also wants to make sure that she can take care of him. This story is heartbreaking, but it is also, it's so colorful, despite everything feeling like it's cast in nothing but shades of gray. It's just beautiful writing, and the characters are what shines through. Shoggy especially, he's hands down one of my favorite characters of all time. Next book, Real Life by Brandon Taylor. This story follows Wallace, who's a biochem student living in the Midwest. He's from Alabama, and his father just recently passed away, and he does not want that information leaked out to his friends. Unfortunately, one of his friends does get a hold of that information, and then she leaks it all over the place, and he unfortunately has to deal with the aftermath of that because they don't understand why he is not being more sentimental about the situation, and he doesn't want to have to relay his past history, and why should he? And yeah, no, he shouldn't. So what this book does really well is that it transplants us into Wallace's shoes. He is the only black person within his circle of friends, and he's also gay, so he's dealing with a lot of this microaggressions that are coming from all of his friends. He is getting into a relationship with one of the guys that he was seemingly originally bullied by, and he's also dealing with a lot of mental health issues, and so there's a lot of confusing and difficult things that are happening. What makes this story so unique is that we are sitting in Wallace's perspective. We are getting his train of thought and how he's dealing with all these situations that keep coming at him on a day-to-day basis. Like, it feels like hourly. And unfortunately, it's all such difficult social issues that there's a huge element of mental health that comes into play, and it's actually quite difficult to manage, and you hope for the best for him, and I do too, and it's a Booker Prize winner. Next book, This Mortal Body by Tutsi Dangrabaga. This story takes place in Zimbabwe. We are following a middle-aged woman named Tambudzia, and she'd recently left her job in marketing, and she is now living in a hostel, and things are quite cliquey there, and she's doing her best to try to get a job and to also find new housing. And when she does land these things in not so much that order, she is dealing with other issues, namely the concepts of colonialism, capitalism, sexism, racism, and mental health. What makes this story so unique is that it's actually written in second person, so you can't help but be stuck in Tambu's POV and to really try to understand what's going on in her head. That was the flaw that I found in the book, is that I couldn't really understand her logic, but for the most part, you can't help but empathize. I did not read the previous books in this series. I started to, and I don't recall Nervous Conditions being in the second person POV. I thought it was in third. What I also want to point out is that Nervous Conditions came out in the 1980s, and much like Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, which was printed in the early 1980s, she did win last year for The Testaments, which was 30 years odd later, getting recognition for another installment for a series. So I absolutely think it would be really cool is to see her win just based on that alone. Next book, The New Wilderness by Diane Cook. This book is a speculative dystopian book about living off of the land. It follows the timeline, it follows the story of two people. B, who is the mother of Agnes, who's about age 5. She's basically got some sort of a lung infection as she's dying, and her mother joins this group with her now husband, who is orchestrating this. It's like a focus group that's living off of the wilderness, and the goal is that they are to live in a very specific parameters, and that they have to make sure that they are able to live off the land without leaving any impact to the environment or their surroundings. And if that's possible at all, the end date is TBD. So they just live off the land as they see fit, and they keep carrying on until they're told not to. What makes this story so interesting is that, I mean, it is making a point talking about the climate change, but it's also like how humans themselves impact the environment and the world around us, even when you don't have much. What makes this story so interesting is that we're actually following two perspectives. It starts out with one and then carries on into the other. We start with the mother and then we carry on with the daughter. And it's an interesting way of seeing how we see each other in our own lenses. So this is a fascinating book. I enjoyed it thoroughly because I just really like wilderness books, but I could see how some people wouldn't really take to the topics. This story is interesting just because it does have this perpetual climb into what I guess you would say the climax of the story, but it's constantly, there's always something going on and there's always this looming threat that something's going to happen. So it's a really good read for me, but last book. The Shadow King by Maaza Mangiste. This book is what I would coin as the Booker Prize winner for 2020, if I have any say in it at all. The story follows the Mussolini invasion into Ethiopia during the Second World War. Now, it also follows a group of women who take up arms, which was unheard of at the time. And it's just plain awesome. This story is actually following both the Ethiopian camp and the Italian side and how they are clashing and trying to outmaneuver one another. What makes this story unique to the other books on the shortlist, as well as pretty much any book that I've read this year, is that it's the delivery of the story and the narrative. We've got not only great characters that are cast, and we've got a full body story. It's very unique to other World War II novels that exist at all. The book actually opens in the 1970s and we are getting a glimpse at some of the dead folk through the lens of photographs that are described to us. The story is also delivered by way of, I want to say, foreshadowing in the use of a choir, which airs back to the Italian operas, which is a really cool tie-in that I have not seen since reading like Greek myths. For me, this was a really unique narrative tool, which really pinned the award onto this book. So there you have it. So that is it. Those are all the books that are on the shortlist and why I think that they should all win. Basically. But here's hoping that the Shadow King takes the crown jewel, and we will be seeing soon. If it's already posted, then okay, whatever, but I probably will not follow up with a review of my thoughts on the winner, but I most certainly will mention it in a future wrap up. So if you want my thoughts on the actual winner, if it's not the Shadow King, then go ahead and subscribe. Also like this video because, you know, you enjoyed, because we did. We read some books.